This is another damn podcast about digital asset management. I'm Henrik de Gyor. Today I'm speaking with John Dougherty. John, how are you?
Hi, Henrik. Nice to be with you today.
You too. John, how are you involved with digital asset management?
Well, I've been involved for a number of years. I was part of the original committee that our CEO convened to do a top-bottom assessment of our technology, and helped by an outside company, DPCI, we did that. We decided that one of the things that we needed to do is to acquire an enterprise-wide DAM. So then I was put in charge of the work group tasked with choosing the DAM technology, and we ended up choosing North Plains Telescope, which we then piloted in 2006 and went ahead and implemented in 2007. I was in charge of the implementation and change management teams, and finally in charge of ongoing operations. And this was also part of my responsibility for content management systems in general.
How do you figure out the business value of digital asset management for your organization?
You know, Henrik, I'm so glad that you put that in terms of business value and not ROI, because I think a lot of organizations rush to the ROI, stepping over qualitative advantages. And in my opinion, you start with the qualitative advantages, and then you conclude with the quantitative advantages. You figure out how a DAM can improve the organization, how it can strengthen it, how it can add core competency. And, eventually what you end up with is lots of different avenues for savings. But I think if you lead with that, it makes a mistake, because then the focus is how many jobs are we going to save? And the translation to the people you're trying to implement the DAM with is how many people can we get rid of? And I think that's really not where you want to be when you're assessing the value of a DAM. But in terms of discovering value, I'm a very big proponent of leading with use cases. I think that working out with each business unit and each part of each business unit a set of use cases, a story if you want, on how this DAM is going to be used. How are you exactly going to achieve, something that group wants to achieve, whether it's a syndication opportunity or greater flexibility in their workflow, or, whatever their goal is, how are you going to actually use the DAM to do that? And I think by leading with use cases, it really keeps you grounded in reality. It keeps you focused on service to the people that you're talking with. And the beauty of it is that, half your implementation and half your change management is done before you've even purchased the system. I think, leading with use cases really helps to uncover business value, to document it well, and then to make sure that you, in fact, are able to realize it.
And then once you have those business cases, is there some kind of way of measuring that value?
Well, certainly you can, there's a lot of different ways to measure value. And one way you can certainly do it is in terms of greater efficiency that you've achieved. So operations that may have taken a long time, you're able to quantify that you're post-DAM or even in the middle of a pilot, that you're able to achieve certain savings in terms of efficiency. I would argue also for getting the people with whom you develop the use cases to assign a value, both quantitative and qualitative, to the achievement of the use case. And so how well you achieve the use case then starts to have a monetary value and a quantitative value. Independently of that, I think you also need to have the active participation of the finance team in having models that will satisfy them, that ROI is being achieved, and that may cut across the use cases in the sense that it provides a reality check on the model that you use going into it. And I think that for each organization, how you do that independent analysis is going to be somewhat different, but it's going to be based on certainly on measurable outputs.
And what advice would you like to share with DAM professionals and people aspiring to become DAM professionals?
I would say, first of all, if you're part of the team that's choosing a DAM, I would say one thing is focus on key features. Don't just create a huge, long laundry list of 752 features that you think are going to be in there, because you quickly get lost among the forest. Even if you do a careful job of vetting those features and weighing them and giving them importance, too large a list will just muddy the waters, in my opinion. Certainly the use cases I talked about. And also I think for choosing, a really good thing to do is when you've concluded on a system and you've worked out a deal with a vendor and possibly an implementation partner and possibly others that will be involved in the process. Draft a simple statement. Have the team draft a simple statement that says, this is what we think we are buying. This is what the dam that we are purchasing includes, and in plain language. Because that's a reality check that the vendor can use and everyone involved can use to basically say, is our understanding the correct understanding? And what I found is when you do that, what sometimes pops out of there is that there are misunderstandings, things that are optional that you're assuming are not, and things that have not been accounted for in the plan that people assume have been accounted for. Other advice I'd say, be honest with yourself. It's very easy to delude yourself with wishful thinking if you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to make a case for something. And if you're relentlessly honest with yourself and let the evidence lead. So if you have a hunch, if you think you know something, well, try to find the best available sources of either qualitative or quantitative info. That may be, people that really know that subject matter, or a body of information that you can get at that will substantiate your hunch. So just don't give in to wishful thinking. Don't delude yourself. I'd say, respect to the expertise of others. It's often dam projects are led by information technology, and properly so. But there's going to be a lot of people whose expertise are needed who may not know the right terms or the right frameworks or think about it in the most sophisticated way. But you have to respect their expertise, because not only will their expertise be needed, but you'll miss things if you don't make sure that you encompass that expertise. Something I wish I had done more in the implementation that I did is look for bright spots. There are going to be groups that just take to it really well, that get off and running. And you can really leverage those bright spots. When you get a bright spot, figure out why it's a bright spot. Why does that work? What is it particularly that is successful about that? And then use that to bring up the success rate in the rest of the tasks that you've got. I think focusing on, steadily on what improves your colleagues' lives, aesthetics and convenience matter. And if you wouldn't want to condemn someone to live in a terrible apartment, the dam that you're putting in is going to be part of their lives, and it needs to be a welcome part of their lives. And so I think that you a steady focus on what improves your colleagues' lives is a great thing. And then lastly, I would say, be prepared to do a 2-year overhaul. Almost all dams have significant problems in their first implementation, and be ready to do a top-down review and then attack those faults and build that into your plan that you're going to need an overhaul in 2 years.
Well, thanks, John.
All right, Henrik. Thank you.
For more on digital asset management, log on to anotherdamblog.com. Another Dam podcast is available on Audioboo, Blueberry, iTunes, and the Tech Podcast Network. Thanks again.